Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Heart of Sports with Jason Springer and Jeff Cohen. We are thrilled to join you on 610 ESPN, ready to help you move into the weekend talking about all the news in the world of sports. It is officially football season. We have NFL games started last night. College football started last week. Jeff Cohen, are you there with me live in Michigan?
I am. I'm just sitting here, and I'm watching the odds for each team to win each of its conferences in college football, and I will tell you, they just put up the Big Ten odds, and there, I believe, are 12 teams in the Big Ten.
Does Rutgers have the best odds to win the division?
They only had 11 teams that actually have Vegas odds to win the Big Ten.
Are you trying
which one doesn't even have odds?
Are you trying to tell me Rutgers doesn't have odds?
According to the ESPN Chiron, there are no odds for Rutgers at the moment.
All right, well, we're going to get to college football because last week Rutgers was down 14-0 and 21-7 to Massachusetts before I could even turn on the game. And you were blowing up my phone already with excitement that Rutgers is going to have another bad season.
Whoa. Let's
actually, I texted you first with an UGG, in fairness. In fairness. But then you enjoyed responding.
By the way, I do have to get this out. The odds for Rutgers under 247 Sports, the odds for Rutgers to win a conference championship are at plus $100,000.
You should take that.
You should go take for $100.
Jeff, we've been through this. I quit betting. My mom will really not be happy if you get me back into gambling.
Oh, yeah, it'll be me that's the bad influence.
I will blame you for everything. Mm-hmm. I should introduce our guest in studio. We've got Mike Greger here from Heavy.com. Going to talk. He's going to be rooting for them. Jeff, he's shaking his head on the other side of the glass. He doesn't like that.
Let's go Chiefs, and for Survivor Football Pool, let's go Baltimore Ravens.
Oh, Jeff.
Plane, and everybody had it on their TV sets on the plane.
I'm sorry for all of those travelers who had to suffer through that.
I have never seen so many people. Usually when you're on a plane, you're not happy to kick the field goal.
Did you see the celebration from the fans when they hit a field goal?
Yeah.
I swear I thought that game was going to come down to the Bears scoring a touchdown and then missing an extra point. Bad football, or is it that we saw good defenses last night? What was going on there? Mike, what do you think?
Kind of a cop-out answer, but I think a little bit of both.
Okay.
I think the fact that they don't play as much in the preseason, you see a guy like Aaron Rodgers, who arguably the best quarterback in football, right? He looked like he needed a couple series to get into rhythm.
Mitch Trubisky looked like he needed a couple games to get into rhythm last night.
I am regretting that.
He's going to need a transplant to get into rhythm.
Jeff, were you surprised by what you saw in the game last night, or did you expect bad football?
I expected bad football. I didn't expect that bad of football, but these are two teams that don't have explosive offenses. You can say Aaron Rodgers is one of the best quarterbacks in football, but he's not surrounded by one of the best talent groups in all of NFL.
Well, I will say this. I saw that ratings were up like 15% last night, and I did see some studies of the game last night.
Yeah, wait.
That in a minute. Let's start with some Eagles. It's been 236 days since the Eagles played a meaningful football game. That will all
Have you been counting?
Yes. It's sort of like I opened as an 8.5-point favorite. It is up to 10 in some places. Eagles shut out the Redskins last season. Jeff, I know you think that stuff doesn't carry over because it's a different. I mean, Mike, that's their bread and butter.
Yeah, run the ball and play defense.
Yeah, the problem with the Redskins, as far as defending against the run, is the second line. So if they get through the defensive line, you got a problem because the linebacking core is what concerns me most.
So Miles, after I don't know if he had an illness or something, but apparently, Jeff, did you realize he missed the last game? He missed the team bus. They didn't know where he was. That became a story in the last day while you were flying out. So apparently Doug met with him today. There won't be a suspension. Bradham will be playing. But if you look at the depth chart, you've got Bradham.
With the injury to Grugier Hill and the way that Nate Geary struggled so mightily in the preseason, I thought it might be worth their while.
Jeff, I don't know if you saw, Schwartz talked about Zach Brown ahead of Nate Geary. So it seems like his depth chart right now going into this game is Nigel Bradham and Zach Brown. That concerns you?
Yeah. As I said, if running back gets past the defensive line, they could take it to the house. That's my biggest concern, is whether or not this linebacking core can do this, because I don't think Washington's receivers are anything to worry about. Their tight end is a little bit to worry about, but for me, the running game and the short game is what concerns me.
So with tight end, we'll see whether Jordan Reed plays. I had Mike check the injury report. He was listed as limited in practice. He's coming off of a concussion, and he's got a history of concussions. So, we'll see whether he plays. If he does, that's definitely, the Eagles have always had problems against physical linebackers who can take it down the middle. He's the kind of guy that can give problems. I would think that you'd see Malcolm Jenkins on him more if that's the case, as opposed to one of the linebackers, unless they put Bradham out on him. But
I'd like to see T.J. Edwards get some play in this game. I mean,
do you
was
think
very
he
impressive.
does, though? He seems like he's basically number 6 on the depth chart right now.
I mean, technically on the depth chart, yeah, but he just looks impressive to me, and I'd like to see what he could do in a real game situation, especially if Washington were to come out and start running the ball effectively early in the game.
Do you think they were surprised at how well he played in the preseason and camp to make the roster?
I think that they were. I mean, he did have a little bit of hype. Everyone was saying he was the best, or this could be the steal of the undrafted free agent class. But, I mean, that's all conjecture. Once you come in and actually do it, I think that they were probably a little surprised by how well he played.
Jeff, you mentioned the wide receivers for the Eagles and the DBs for Washington. The Eagles have Ronald Darby, Sidney Jones, and Avonte Maddox as their top 3. Darby's coming back from an injury. I don't really know what there is in Sidney Jones yet. Jeff, I have been pro Sidney Jones since they drafted him injured. We had a doctor on who voiced concerns at the time.
That's because you believe in the process.
I do believe in the process. You are anti-process, or you're kind of middle process, something like that.
I'm middle process.
And Maddox looked pretty good last year. You've got other people starting on injured list. How do you feel about the Eagles' defensive backs, knowing that for Washington, their top 3 wide receivers, Paul Richardson, Terry McLaurin, and Trey Quinn, have a combined 124 career catches, with Richardson having 115 of them?
So my question is how did Terry McLaurin become the number 1 wide receiver on Washington when they didn't target him once during the preseason?
It puzzles me. They felt comfortable enough to cut a veteran in Josh Doxson for a 3rd-round receiver out of Ohio State. How often do you see a wide receiver of any draft level make that much of an impact early in the season? And you're talking about a team that doesn't have that many weapons to begin with. It shocks me that that's how they've tried to approach this season.
Well, anytime your judgment is to rely on somebody from Ohio State, you got a problem.
I love the Michigan stuff.
Jay Gruden's taking a page out of John's playbook.
Well,
his Hunter Renfrow love.
Nobody understands what either of the Grudens are doing. We'll get to John in a few minutes. Do you think that Dwayne Haskins makes it in the game, Jeff? Another Ohio State player that you love so much.
No, if they thought that he was ready, he would be starting week 1. I mean, I still think that he's the best quarterback in this quarterback class. He has, as far as the guy who has the most potential.
That takes a lot for you to say about an Ohio State player. I'm impressed.
Yeah, it pains me.
I was going to say, you're sitting like in Michigan praising an Ohio State guy. Are they going to block you out and take away your Michigan card?
No, because watch if you missed the Michigan-Ohio State game last year, he shredded them. So I just think that he has the most potential. They obviously don't think he's ready yet. I don't know why they don't think he's ready, but I haven't been able to figure out what Jay Gruden's doing since they hired him.
Keenum's only 26-28 as a starter with an 84.5 passer rating in his career. We all remember the last time that he played at the Link. It did not go well for him, 38-7 loss. Last year, he was 28th in 3rd down passing for the Broncos. Mike, what are the Redskins thinking starting the season with Case Keenum?
I don't know. I can't answer that question. We just made fun of Jay Gruden, and no one knows what he's thinking. But I will say that I think part of the thing with this is they don't want to start a rookie quarterback on the road, because if he went in there in a divisional rivalry game like that, that stadium's going to be rocking, and he got lit up or he had a bad game, that could wreck his whole confidence, and then you just wasted that first-round pick that they placed on this guy to be the franchise quarterback. If you remember when Carson Wentz started 3 years ago, I mean, they knew that he was getting that home game against the Cleveland Browns. It was a pretty good way to start your career if you're a rookie quarterback.
Jeff is sick of the Cleveland Browns already this year. He's over them. He does not believe in the hype.
Well, yeah, but he's talking about the Cleveland Browns from 3 years ago.
I know. I was just taking the opportunity to point out that you're over them. See, they're 5.5-point favorites this week, Jeff. We'll get to those picks in a little bit.
When was the last time the Browns were favored in a football game?
By 5.5 points. I don't know. That's going to go back and find that. We talked a little bit last week, Jeff, and I wanted to talk about it a little bit with you and Mike more because everything that I see out of the Eagles, I get that Jordan Howard is number one on the depth chart, but Miles Sanders is the number one running back on this team in the eyes of the coaches. I think he's going to end up with more touches than Howard on Sunday. Somebody tell me I'm crazy.
I'm not. I took him all three of my fantasy teams. Ahead of Howard.
I mean, Jeff, your thoughts? It just seems like I took Miles Sanders on my team.
I think that Jordan Howard is the better running back and the guy that they're going to rely on. I just can't see that Doug is going to rely on a rookie from the outset at the running back position.
I just think that he provides more versatility for the team, and as soon as they saw that he could pick up a blitz,
what do you see about Jordan Howard that you don't like as far as versatility?
It's not what I don't see that I don't like. It's that I think that Miles Sanders is a better running back, and in Doug's offense, they like to run that little screen pass. They like to have a receiver run out. Sanders has more speed than Howard. Howard is believe me, I have drafted Jordan Howard in my fantasy league the last 3 years for Chicago. I'm very familiar with him as a running back, and like last year, I kept saying I want the Eagles to get Jordan Howard. I just happen to think that everything you see out of this coaching staff says they like Jordan Howard, they love Miles Sanders. That's just what it looks like. I could be wrong, but
he looks so explosive. I mean, I know it's been said, but he kind of looks like McCoy did when he was a rookie. He's got that shake, that certain cut on a dime ability that not many running backs have. And then when he learned how to pick up a blitz, I think that the light bulb went on with this coaching staff, and they all thought that this is going to be our starting running back for the next 4 or 5 years, whatever it is.
Oh no! What I just heard is a Philadelphia overhype. This guy better live up to the hype, otherwise, because now if he doesn't succeed from game one, everybody's going to be saying he's a bust.
But I think that's how the coaching staff views him. It's not a question of hype. It's a question of what they see. It just seems, I mean, I could be wrong, but it just seems like that's what they see when they look at him.
Don't know.
So, Jeff, get on the hype train.
I heard Philadelphia. No.
Get on the hype train.
I'm going to go even keel. You can go on the overhype train.
Make your pick for this week. Who wins the game? Eagles, Redskins. How big? You think it's big?
Eagles win by 2 touchdowns.
2 touchdowns. Okay, I've seen a lot of 31-17 as scores. Mike,
that's what I had. I had 31-17, but I think at least 2 touchdowns.
Okay. For some reason, just because it's first week in sloppy football, the 10-point spread worries me. It just seems like a lot. Could be totally wrong, but I mean, I definitely think the Eagles are going to win. Let's look at a couple other games going on this week. Jeff, the Browns are 5.5-point favorites. I mentioned against the Titans. You buying it?
It's the Titans. Yeah, I buy it.
Okay, so you buy the hype. So you pick Cleveland this week.
No, it's not. It's not hype. The Titans are not that good.
Oh, okay. So it's not about the Browns for you. It's about the Titans.
Exactly.
Mike, Ravens, Dolphins. Ravens giving up 7 points. Are the Dolphins even going to field a football team this year?
No, they're playing for Tua, right? They already gave up.
They're playing for draft picks.
Yeah, they're playing for draft picks. But I would be scary about that as a survivor pick, just because everyone's picking that game.
Brett, you didn't pick that, right? You picked the Ravens?
Yes, I did.
Uh-oh. He said be worried. Are you concerned?
Yeah, I am. Very. It's week 1. And I'm already pooping my pants.
We don't want to know what's going on the other side of the glass.
I just want to say, and this also pains me, I'm a Dolphins fan this week.
Why? Just because you don't like the Ravens, or because you want Brett to be out of his survivor pool?
Because Brett will be out of his survivor pool in week 1.
Oh, thanks. The worst part is my brother's a diehard Dolphins fan, so I didn't have the courage to tell him what I was doing.
Well,
so
he knows about it now if he listens to the show, and if not, then we'll post it on your Facebook page so that he sees it. Don't worry, we'll get it out there.
Oh, darn it.
And by the way, here's what else is going to happen. Brett will, if Brett loses in the first week on that pick, then he will be a Ravens fan by the end of the season.
No, I won't. I'll hate the Ravens.
Yes, you will. Oh, I guarantee it.
I wasn't mad at Miami for dumping people because I've got Kenny Stills on a fantasy team, so at least he's got Deshaun Watson throwing into him now in Houston. Falcons at the Vikings. The Eagles have the Falcons next week. Mike, you're actually going to be there, not covering it, just at a bachelor party, hopefully not too inebriated and enjoying yourself. Any thoughts, Mike or Jeff, on the Falcons and the Vikings? Jeff?
What?
Any thoughts on Falcons or Vikings?
I got nothing.
I
got you.
Brett,
Brett,
if we could stop the show right now and just cut that clip of "I've got nothing," I'm going to need that.
The game that I have that I think is going to be the best game of the week is probably the Steelers-Patriots game on Monday night.
That's Sunday night. But it's
Sunday night.
But it's a good game.
Yeah.
Mike, any other games you're looking out for this week? Cowboys are a 7.5-point favorite against the Giants. It's actually lower than I thought because they're at home. Broncos giving up 2 points to the Raiders on Monday night. Let's move that into our NFL talk. Jeff, how would you like to have Antonio Brown on your team right now?
I told you. I don't know what they're doing. I have no idea why they're letting him get away with this.
Well, right now he's starting Monday night again.
Well, so when I heard that this morning, my first thought was Mike Mayock will not make it to the end of the season.
Did they just try and play good cop, bad cop, and Mayock had to fold? Is that what happened?
No, I think that Gruden has a 10-year contract and he can't afford to lose. And Mayock tried to put his foot down, and basically Mayock was told, "Look, I can't take your side."
My understanding.
And once you do that, once you have somebody in a position of authority who gets knocked down like that, nobody's going to have any respect for him. And I don't know how, as a leader of an organization, as a general manager, he survives this. Maybe he keeps his job, but he's got no authority to do anything.
My understanding is he can't.
Does anybody believe that Antonio Brown is capable of being sincere about anything other than what he wants for himself? He is the least team guy in the NFL right now.
So you don't want him? Is that what I'm taking away?
He is the consummate cancer in the NFL.
How about Melvin Gordon? Because the news came out this week that the Eagles potentially made an offer that Doug Peterson says wasn't an offer of Jordan Howard and some picks to get Melvin Gordon. Would you take him on your team, Jeff?
You think that his worth is more than it actually is? But what Antonio Brown has been doing is a different level of stupidity and selfishness. Think about it. He didn't play in the last game of the season when they had a chance to make the playoffs. Then he goes to a new team, and the first thing he does is he doesn't show up because of his helmet that he was warned a year ago he was not going to be able to use. And then after resolving that whole thing, then if any employee who worked for a company had gotten the letter that he got from his boss and posted it on social media, they'd be fired in a heartbeat.
Don't forget about his feet, Jeff.
And then threatening the general manager?
Yeah, that I can't imagine that goes well.
You know this is going to end well, but it's the Raiders. So, look, Al Davis may be long gone, but apparently the legacy of the Raiders being just a mess continues.
Yeah, the Raiders are definitely going to Raider no matter what.
You know what's going to happen there? Somehow this drama is going to keep unfolding. They just said that as long as he plays week 1, he's guaranteed his money. So he's going to play week 1, and then he's going to carry this drama into the regular season, and he's going to end up on the Patriots for like a 6th-round pick because that's what Belichick always does.
You know what the best part of it was? That did you see who the person was that broke up the confrontation with between Mayock and him? Vontez Perfect. Vontez Perfect. It was the perfect end to that story. That's who did it. Mike, Zeke Elliott is back with a new deal with the Cowboys. Jeff is not surprised at all. He said all along he didn't want to be in.
You can't leave the Raiders discussion without asking how John Gruden has gone through week after week talking about how much he likes Nate Peterman.
Okay, Jeff. How is John Gruden going through week after week saying he likes Nate Peterman?
How is this guy that was perceived to be this genius of offensive football, who had the Gruden talk every week when he had his, when he was in the booth? seems to know all this stuff, and he keeps just opening his mouth talking about how Nate Peterman is so good.
Look, Colin Kaepernick's not busy. So, I've never been in to be added to that at the moment. I still don't have faith in him as a quarterback. For their sake, I hope that they can protect Derek Carr. That's all that I would say if I'm a Raiders fan. You better hope that your line can hold up. Jeff, you're not surprised that Zeke has a deal, 6 years, $90 million extension that includes $50 million guaranteed. Mike, what are we going to see? Is he going to play week 1? How much do you think he's going to play? And will it impact him that he did not play in the preseason? Because nobody plays in the preseason, apparently.
Yeah, I think he's going to go right in and get his usual workload. He's been a beast, arguably the best running back for the past 3 years. I don't see any hindrance now, unless he's a little out of shape from eating too many tacos in Cabo San Lucas. But I think they expect him to be ready to go and be the workhorse back that he's always been.
Jeff, he's now paid higher than Todd Gurley. Any thoughts on what Dallas has done with giving out their money? They still don't have Dak under contract. Look, I ain't mad at them for keeping Dak, but some of the decisions they made, are you surprised the money they've given out, who they've guaranteed, and who they don't have under contract right now?
I'd just like to say, hey, Jerry Jones, you blinked.
He did. He definitely blinked. He gave him all his money. Zeke got everything he wanted. Jerry definitely blinked there at Jerry World. LaShawn McCoy is now a Kansas City Chief. Jeff, your reaction?
I think he'll be a good bonus for that team. I think that he'll fit in. He knows Andy Reid. Andy Reid knows him. And as long as he realizes that he's not Shady McCoy of 5-7 years ago, he could be a valuable piece to that puzzle.
Brett, how excited were you that the Chiefs got a player that you knew?
Hyped. One less person to worry about.
One less person that you have to learn out there. Jeff, you're
good.
good.
Hey, Brett, who's Shady McCoy?
He used to be in Eagles.
Profound, Brett. Way to add something there. Tyreek Hill is now one of the highest paid receivers with a new deal, $54 million. Jeff, on the one hand, he's the only player in NFL history with 25 touchdowns and 5 returns in his first 3 seasons. On the other hand, we've talked extensively about the alleged reports and rumors of his off-field conduct. Your reaction to the fact that another player with questionable off-field issues is being taken care of on the field?
Why? He was obviously under contract for this year, right? So if he's under contract for this year, why are you rewarding him now? Why, after everything that they just went through with him again, would they not just sit there and say, all right, let's see if he's a good citizen this year? What was the point in doing this?
I don't know. I don't negotiate contracts.
You do.
Well, that's the thing. If he gets in trouble again, he's got his money. So just saying, why would you do that if you know that there's a potential? I mean, he had a history before he was drafted. It's why he fell. It doesn't seem like things have changed. There continue to be rumors that surround him.
It's not just rumors. He was on tape saying things that, even if the other things weren't true, the stuff that came out of his mouth should give everybody pause about what kind of person this is and whether or not this is a guy that you want to reward. I just don't see, even if you think that you want to have him on your team, now was not the time to reward him.
Well, it seems like the Chiefs paused and then went forward.
But also, adding to that is, it seemed like they drafted his replacement when they got Hardman. So they had an out, and then they gave him this money. The contract makes no sense to me.
None of it makes sense, though. They have a lot of weapons on that team now.
They do.
Pat Mahomes has a lot of people to throw a handoff to. Jeff, last thing before we go to the break, I wanted to ask you about the new pass interference challenge. I know that I've talked about wanting to get it right. I know you have concerns about the use of instant
whether
replay.
Or not they'll get it right.
Is this going to be the big controversy this season in the league? The use of and ability to challenge pass interference plays. We saw it last night. LaFleur challenged a catch that wasn't a pass interference. They looked at it in a challenge, and he lost. 1 game, 1 challenge, 1 success. We're going to continue?
It will be one of many things that people complain about all season, but this will definitely be a big one.
Mike, how do you think it's going to impact games? Are we going to see games swing on these calls that people make, or their waste of challenges? It's just going to become another point of criticism that fans can have for coaches that they didn't use their challenge right?
It's definitely another point of criticism. I mean, that's the number one thing with this. But people are worried about the games are going to get longer. As long as they get the calls right, I don't see that it's going to prolong the game that much. I'm actually wasn't for it at first, but I've come around, and I think it's going to be good for the game.
All right, let's hang it there. Jeff, hang out. I know you're hanging out in the lobby in Michigan or something. Stick with me. We'll come back. We'll talk a little more NFL. We'll talk college. We'll talk some other stuff.
Sports lets people live their dreams, overcome obstacles, and achieve goals. But what's your unimaginable? Do you want to be a part of something bigger than yourself? To push your limits? The A-Fatty clothing brand believes we're all capable of going far beyond we previously imagined, to overcome your obstacles and achieve your goals. Life gives you the chance to push harder, to dream bigger, and to do whatever it takes to conquer the unimaginable. And to do it with A-Fatty On You, the original street leisure clothing brand.
Taking you into the weekend with the latest news in the world of sports, with the biggest names on and off the field. It's The Heart of Sports each and every Friday at 4 p.m. on 610 ESPN, with former players, reporters, and commentators like Adam Schefter, John Runyon, Keith Jones, Trey Thomas, and Doug Glanville. Jason Springer and Jeff Cohen cover the agony and ecstasy of fandom while weaving in conversations about the impact of sports on society. That's The Heart of Sports, Fridays at 4 p.m. Yo, Jeff, you still hanging out there with us?
I am. I'm sitting here looking out. Outside my window. There are a whole bunch of Army people seeming to get partying, and the game is still, I don't know, 18 hours away.
You want to see if any of them has a glass of water for you? How about it?
Look, they're military guys. I'm going to go party with them.
I did want to talk real fast about a study I saw. Jeff, you know my interest in the gaming side of this business. Did you see that there's a new study out from the American Gaming Association, so I will say where it's from clearly, about how much gaming increases viewership. There's going to be 1.2 million more Americans that place bets legally this year. Does that surprise you? Is that a lower number than you thought, higher number? What do you think?
Look, you want to place, I know how much you like these kind of statistics, but the fact is you already said exactly what you know my skepticism is, which this is a study that comes out of the American Gaming Association. That's like saying that the Cigarette Association saying there's 1.2 million more people that are going to smoke this year because of X number of reasons. There may be an increase in gambling. I have no idea. There probably is an increase in gambling, but this study in particular doesn't exactly faze me one way or the other.
Are you still searching for a fantasy league? Did you find one?
I think I have found one.
All right, good. Just wanted to make sure. All right, so
I'll be able to talk fantasy football with you.
Since you're in Michigan, you want to go to some college football or you want to talk some other sports? What do you want to do? I'll let you lead the way.
Wow, you want to skip the Union?
No, I don't want to skip them. It's a question of whether we want to talk about them together or whatever.
All right, well, let's talk about college football first.
Okay.
I think that there's some really good games. Obviously, the Michigan Army game is one of them, but I think there are a lot of good games this weekend. And college football is getting into full swing so early. I mean, the number one Clemson's already taken on Texas A&M in week 2. That's the kind of game that you want from the outset.
That is a fun game at Death Valley. I think it's at Death Valley in the afternoon there. It should be a crazy atmosphere. Jeff, you saw a game there last year with your son, right? Tell our fans what it'll be like there.
Clemson football is like a religion. I mean, we were there for it was a Clemson.
Says the Michigan man. Says the Michigan man.
I look, as a guy who went to Michigan, I have never seen nor experienced anything other than the Army-Navy game like a Clemson football home game. Maybe it was because it was the rivalry game. Maybe it was because they were the number one team. I don't know what it is, but they know how to put on a show.
Oh, no doubt. Did you happen to see last week, one of our listeners, John Infante, will like this little Syracuse grad. Did you see that the Liberty head coach, Hugh Freeze, coached in the press box in a hospital bed after back surgery last week? Is that dedication?
Liberty.
Is that dedication?
It is dedication.
I mean,
I'll give him that. It is dedication.
Something tells me that if you had back surgery you would not be across from me in the studio in a bed doing this radio show. I don't think you're that committed to me.
That I will not.
Yeah,
I will not unless there is enough pain medication in me, and then you will not want me on air.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Ticket prices.
Like that Adam Gase story when his wife was giving birth.
What did he do?
As soon as the baby came out, he said, "We're good here," and he went back to the office and started watching film.
I'm sure that went over very well at home. Yeah. As of the other day, the cheapest...
Wait, I have a question. Did his wife actually answer, yeah, we're good here, go ahead?
I don't know.
I got to be honest, I wouldn't be daring enough to ask that question of my wife. We're expecting our second. Sweetie, I will not be leaving right afterwards to go do the radio show with Jeff. Don't you worry about that.
I will be doing my best to convince you just to say those words.
$994, Jeff. That was the cheapest pair of tickets on StubHub yesterday for LSU Texas tomorrow night. Ticket prices have come down a little bit. You get a pair for $389 a piece right now. Basically somewhere around there. Best seat in the house for a pair, $950. You going to the game, Jeff? Would you pay that to see a game?
No, I'm going to the Michigan Army game. But if you're down there, think about it. Louisiana and Texas are not that far apart. You have two rabid fan bases with two teams that are on the rise. That's the kind of game that you want. That's something. As much as I like pro football, you cannot replicate what the college football experience is like, what the whole pregame experience is like, because people are more invested in the game because so many people either went there or grew up with that. It's just those kind of games, and to have them this early in the season instead of your typical Alabama versus, Little Sisters of the Poor.
I would say Michigan versus Appalachian State, but I know that brings back bad memories.
Yeah, well, I just want to, since you're going to bring it up, that did not turn out to be such a powder puff game because look what happened. As a person who was there and traumatized my child for many years.
Alex is there looking at the school now. Does he still blame you for bringing him to that game?
Of course he does.
Poor guy. Stanford's going to play at USC. It's going to be a battle of the backup quarterbacks. You've got quarterback KJ Costello ruled out for Stanford, and for USC, their quarterback JT Daniels tore his ACL last week. Not quite the marquee matchup that it was, but USC Stanford, always a good time. Jeff, will you be staying up and watching?
No. Very simply, I will not.
No hesitation.
Jeff, will you watch anything other than Army Michigan on Saturday?
What I'm hoping to do is I'm hoping to enjoy. I'm sure I'll be stressed out because Army runs that crazy offense. And Michigan
so let's talk about that game.
Not good at stopping those games.
What are you expecting? How big is your anxiety level knowing that you're playing a team that runs the ball and you do not stop the run well?
Well, it's not just that. Army is good. Army last year was really good, and they're bringing back their quarterback. They still run that offense. I expect Michigan to have some fits. Last week, their defense did not play particularly well. The offense is loaded this year, so we'll see if that's going to happen. I expect it to be a close game, and probably at the end of it, Michigan wins by 2 touchdowns, maybe 3 touchdowns. But after that game's over and I head to the airport, what I'm going to be doing is setting my, I'd say VCR, but that would show my age. I'll set my DVR.
You're going to DVR the Rutgers, Iowa game? Is that what you're going to do?
That's exactly what I was going to say. So I could get home and watch that big game between Iowa and Rutgers because I'm sure it is going to be a nail-biter.
Rutgers is 1-0, okay? So take that and stuff it in your pipe and smoke it.
Okay.
Just remember... Go ahead.
Rutgers was down 14-0, and then 21-7 last week to UMass.
Yes, and they won.
Uh-huh.
Look, I'm not expecting a victory this week. I went and saw football games out in Iowa City at the University of Iowa. That's a tough stadium to play in. Kinnick Stadium out there. It's a great place if you haven't gone to see a football game. It's a lot of fun. Going to be a tough trip for Rutgers out there this week. Iowa's number 20 in the country, but they did lose their left tackle, the NFL prospect, last week. Jeff, I'm assuming you don't think that will matter.
No, not against Rutgers. But the one other thing I will say about Iowa is if people have a chance, I don't know where they're going to actually televise that game, but if you can actually find the game, the pregame thing that they do at Iowa is there's a children's hospital that is within viewing distance of the football stadium. And at the beginning of the game, all of the fans and the students turn to the kids who are watching from the window and wave to them. And it's one of the more touching things that you'll ever see at a sporting event.
It is definitely very cool to be a part of. Any other games this week or anything from last week that caught your attention in college football, Jeff, before we move on?
I think, yeah, I mean, the one other game that may be interesting is BYU at Tennessee, although Tennessee's performance last week leads you to believe that maybe the real question is whether or not Tennessee's coach survives the rest of the season.
Yeah, maybe they should have kept Greg Schiano. Cal's also.
I don't know if that was Schiano's decision. I mean, I don't know if that was their decision.
Cal's also going to play at Washington. That's another big game out on the West Coast. Washington has been a tough team, and that'll be a showcase for their quarterback in that game. Washington's ranked 14th, and they're hoping for a big season, but that's a rivalry matchup out there with Cal. Jeff, that's after your bedtime, so my guess is you'll not watch that either?
Yeah, way past my bedtime.
That's what I thought. All right, you want to talk baseball, soccer, tennis?
Phillies?
Well, why do you want to bring me down with this show, Jeff? Come on, I was so excited about football.
What is going on with the Phillies? But the big news is, look who's back, Maikel Franco, and he's in the starting lineup tonight.
Are you for real? I didn't even see the starting lineup. Is he really starting tonight? After everything this team said about him? Look, the Phillies are going to play just good enough to not be officially eliminated until the last week of the season. Can we just acknowledge that at this point? Like,
I think you might be wrong.
Oh, you think they're going to be eliminated before that?
I think so. Look, and I'm the one who was the glass half full from the beginning of the season. I just don't. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what they're doing and why they do things as inconsistently as they're doing them.
They are now 72-67, 4 games back of the wild card. 2 more wasted chances to pick up games in that race. They've got 22 games left, 19 in a row against teams with winning records, starting against the Mets this week. Jeff, they now have a 1.9% chance to make the playoffs. I think that's high.
Did you not watch what just happened with the Red season, the Red series?
I did. It was terrible.
So what makes you think that they're going to be able to compete with teams that have better records?
I said I think that's high.
I
think 1.9% is overestimating it. I will say,
I really don't get it.
Well, what don't you get? They're just not good enough. They haven't been good enough all season. Like I'm reminded of Tony Dungy. Who was it? Herm Edwards or Tony? Or no, it was Dennis Green. They are who we thought they were. Like the Phillies are who we thought they were. They're exactly
no. See, but I don't think that. I think that this team was mismanaged out of the playoff position from the beginning of the season. I think that this pitching staff behind this manager and this pitching coach, who I do not understand why he is still here. Name me one guy on this pitching staff, bullpen or starter, who has improved under this pitching coach.
I'm surprised he hasn't been fired, too. I mean, look, people can say what they want.
When you got rid of the hitting coach, why didn't you get rid of the pitching coach?
I was going to say, people can say what they want, but they have hit better since they got rid of the hitting coach. So,
because Charlie knows hitting. There is nobody in baseball that knows hitting better than Charlie.
Are there going to be organizational changes? I mean, we saw the head of scouting is leaving. Do you think there's going to be?
You already see it because the Phillies hitting coach wasn't just the major league hitting coach. He was putting in place a whole program for the entire minor league system. And by bringing Charlie in, I see them going back. And look, we've talked to enough minor league players to know that the guys who aren't following the program are the guys that are being successful.
I was going to say, Alec Boehm is your prime example of he's the see-ball, hit-ball guy as opposed to the analytics guy. And, I mean, that's
right.
Alec Boehm is the best illustration of Charlie Manuel's approach versus the other approach. And
isn't Bryce Harper that also? Look at Bryce Harper over the last month.
Who now has 30 home runs and 100 RBIs. He's the first Phillies outfielder to do it since Pat Burrell in 2005 and the first Philly to do it since 2011. So we can talk about the up and down season that he's had, but at the same time, he's somebody who now is putting up numbers in that lineup. Another bright spot, I mean, JT Realmuto, 22 home runs, 75 RBIs, both career highs. I have no idea why teams try and steal against him. I don't know what they're seeing. The Phillies are going to need to break out the bank and pay that man this offseason, Jeff.
I think so. I think the pieces are going to be there if they can figure out the pitching. And the other thing is, maybe they should have went out and got Keuchel when they had the chance. I don't know if that would have solved all of the problems, because I think they do have a lot of problems in the bullpen too, partly because of the number of injuries that they've had. But this starting staff outside of Aaron Nola has just been terrible.
Well, what do they do next
I
year?
I can't believe that I'm watching Drew Smiley, and where did Vincent come from?
No, look, there's a lot of names that have shown up in this bullpen and that have shown up on this team, on this field, that I've never heard of before they show up with a jersey on. But the question becomes, with their starting pitching, what do they do next year? You know, you got Spencer Howard, who people wanted to bring up this year. I know you didn't want to because he's skipping straight, but he had a dominant start, 7 innings, shutout ball in the first Reading playoff game. David Parkinson, again, 7 strong innings last night. Unfortunately, they didn't win either of those games. Those are your arms in the system there. You got a few more. Are they going to look within? Do they have enough talent within? Or is it a combination of need to go sign a big pitcher, need to get middle-of-the-road guys? What are you doing if Jeff is general manager of the Phillies, other than changing the pitching coach?
Well, I think that what we do is we move Kingery back to his original spot at second base. You see how much you can get, if you can get enough for Caesar. I still think that Maikel Franco has more value than the Phillies see. I'm glad they didn't cut him, which was one of the things that I heard was one of the scuttlebutts, was that they possibly could cut him, which makes no sense.
I was going to say, did that make your head explode? Because the second I saw that report, I thought of you, and I know how you've been down on their ability to devalue their players, and the whole idea of cutting Maikel Franco totally fed right into that. It's just
it makes no
nothing
sense.
Says
to me.
we love you and you have talent like we thought about cutting you a week before the end of the season when we're not going to make the playoffs.
There has to be a story that we all don't know yet as to why Maikel Franco was sent down so unceremoniously, left down unceremoniously, and then even when he did well down there and the rosters expanded, they didn't bring him up right away. There has, because if there isn't,
well, they didn't bring him up right away because of how many days they needed, I think, in service down. I think that was like a technicality that they didn't bring him up right away. But sending him down,
I think there was more to it than that. I just think there's something that's going on there, and people used to complain about when under the Ruben Amaro regime about how they overvalued their prospects. This organization under Klentak seems to do the opposite in causing the value to go down.
Jeff,
it just doesn't make sense to me.
I saw an interesting story, and for our listeners, we obviously do our minor league show for the Phillies that airs on Thursdays. Next week's going to be our last show before the Fightins, who are still in the playoffs. Did you see that the amount of home runs increase in AAA this year over last year, Jeff?
Only in AAA.
Only in AAA. And there's a difference in that Major League Baseball's balls and the AAA balls are made in China, but the balls at the other levels are made in Costa Rica. So at AAA...
but that's not the issue.
But at AAA, they had a 58% increase in home runs. And you and I have talked to the players about the difference in the ball.
But it's easily explained. That's it. It is easily explained in two ways. One, the ball that they're using in AAA and the major leagues is wound tighter. So that's first of all, which means it's going to fly farther. Second of all, there are more pitches in the zone that you would hit for home runs because the ball is juiced necessarily, but it is a tighter ball.
So is this Major League Baseball?
And anybody who doesn't believe it, all they have to do is see that it's only a AAA in the Major League.
Is this Major League Baseball going back to chicks dig the long ball that they went through in the steroid era? Now all of a sudden, as opposed to artificially enhancing their players, they're changing the makeup of the ball so that they can get that result? Or do you think that next season they come back and they move more towards the ball like you're seeing in the lower levels, which hasn't led to that increase in home runs?
Well, the question is whether or not the players' union is going to get involved in this, because there are more pitchers than there are home run hitters necessarily. And if I'm the pitchers, I'm getting everybody together and saying, look, this is impacting me more than it's impacting the guys that are hitting 40 home runs instead of 30 home runs. I mean, it's getting ridiculous to the point that how many really, other than Justin Verlander, who just threw another no-hitter in his career, it's too much offense, and it's not good for the game because home runs aren't just the answer. You still have to fix all the other parts of the game.
Well, that's a much longer conversation. I'll leave that there for now. Let's get to a little soccer in extra time. Jeff, I was so disappointed I was not at Talon Energy Stadium last weekend with 18,510 fans as the Union beat Atlanta United. What did you see as the team picked up a 3-1 victory to remain in first place against one of the top teams in the league?
Well, then you just summarized it great. This was their coming out party. They were already fighting for first place with the defending champions in the MLS. And Atlanta was playing great. And keep in mind, what were the Union without? They were without their captain because he got a red card. Well, he got, 2 yellow cards in the prior game, so he was not able to play. So despite not having their on-field captain, they were able to play great defense. Casper, again, did what Casper does. Aronson was great. Santos was great. They basically had their coming out party, but now they have a week to rest. And then next week, they're at it again against the clear favorite to win the MLS Cup.
Yeah, we need to go to that. That's going to be fun down there. Are you back next week? Can we go? Hang on.
We will definitely be at that game, and I can guarantee you that game will be sold out. In fact, I would be shocked if there is not a single seat for the rest of the game, the rest of the season that you'll be able to get.
I don't know if that stadium has shook and been that loud since early in the club's tenure. Right away involved in a goal. And so, he continues to push the right buttons for this team, no matter what changes, what injuries they have, players out on loan. Curtin continues to get it done for them as coach.
And in the meantime, can I ask a question?
No, we don't take questions.
How do you get a yellow card for taking your shirt off during a celebration?
Well, I'd get a red card if I took my shirt off during a celebration.
Well, yeah, but that's a whole different discussion.
You know what my first thought was, actually? Now they're not going to be able to track him on the GPS stats anymore.
Yeah, because he ripped that off.
He ripped off the sports bra underneath that they all have to wear. So now Curtin's short on numbers for how far he ran. It was definitely a fun atmosphere down there for the game. We're going to have to make it down there again for the next one, without a doubt, right?
Yep, we'll be there.
Can I talk tennis with you for a sec?
All right.
Do it.
What do you want to talk about?
Serena Williams was in her 38th Grand Slam semifinal. She's going for her 24th title on Saturday. That's a lot, Jeff. She's pretty good. I mean, we talk about women in sports.
Is she the greatest tennis player of all time, male or female?
I'm so bad at those conversations because I don't know history. Not because I'm not old enough, Jeff, just because I don't know it, okay? But I'm very bad at those conversations of the greatest ever. She definitely seems like it. I mean, she has dominated and changed the sport in a way that few have. We talk about the way Tiger changed the sport in golf. Serena has changed the game of women's tennis. She's playing a 19-year-old in her first final. Can you imagine the nerves that she's going to have comparison in that one?
Well, I mean, look, Naomi Osaka did it with Serena last year. So, I mean, for women tennis players, 19 is getting kind of old.
U.S. women's national team finished their victory tour. Did you see that Finland is now going to pay their women's and men's teams the same amount of money as their counterparts? A new 4-year contract?
Good for them. It should be.
Megan Rapinoe not being quiet about her dissatisfaction with the Soccer Federation. She said, "How does this end? Because I don't know who has the overall leverage here. You're a contract person in a negotiation program. Public opinion is clearly on the side of the women's soccer team. Do they have the financial leverage to win this fight right now?"
I don't think it's a question about leverage. I just think it's about the moment. And I think that we are now in a moment that they are so popular. I mean, look, we were at that game at the Link. They are rock stars in their sport, and they become rock stars bigger than their sport. And I think that they need to be heard. I think that most of the players, male and female, are supportive of it. And I think what's going to end up happening is you're going to see, probably by the end of this year, you'll see a shake-up in the soccer organization. And I think that they'll end up getting equal pay.
Oh, so you think this will actually lead to changes at the federation because you think the federation's stance is untenable?
Well, I think the way that the federation has handled this has been a PR nightmare, and I think that they're going to get rid of these guys.
Without a doubt. Last minute, I want to ask you your football traditions, and I've got Mike here still. Jeff, where do you watch games? How do you watch them? Are you a home guy, or you like to go to stuff?
I am a homer.
I'm a homer. Like I like to be in the privacy of my home, watching on a TV. I don't necessarily like to be walking up and down steps at a game. I like the commentary. What's your thing?
My tradition for college football is to be with friends or be with my son at a college football game. And tomorrow we'll be at a tailgate at 9:00. We'll go into the stadium at 11:30, and we'll cheer hard for 4 hours. But it's football is just different than any sport when it comes to watching. Now, when it comes to NFL football, give me a nice TV, and I'll go sit on my couch.
Mike, are you a in-stadium guy? We're in the Eagles press box for the women's national team event. It's an odd situation watching in there. Can't cheer in the press box. Are you an in-stadium guy, or are you on TV guy?
I did the in-stadium as press for a long time. Before that, I was in-stadium, tailgate, the whole 9 yards. But as Jeff said, you got to be with your core group of friends, people that share the same passion and wear the same jersey and just get into it. Maybe even paint your face for a big game.
Jeff, I'm going to let you paint your face. Thanks so much for joining us this week. Make sure to join us next Friday night to help you start your weekend in style. Have a great one, and we'll talk to you next week.